Hi, it's Callum. Thank you so much for downloading That Autism Thing. You can find out more information about autism and Asperger's by visiting the National Autistic Society's website, where there's great tips, videos, and information to help support you or a family member that might have the condition. Thank you so much for downloading episode 5 of That Autism Thing, episode for brothers. My name is Callum Ronan, and I'm a freelance radio producer for the BBC, and I also run my own creative agency called Callum Ronan Creative. In this episode of That Autism Thing, I chat to my brother Declan, and for 26 years he's been my older brother. I've looked up to him, I've chatted to him about everything, and our love for video games is pretty big. In this episode, I want to explore what it's like to have a younger brother on the autism spectrum and what his thoughts, feelings, and perceptions were growing up with a younger brother on the spectrum.
I don't really have any other brothers to compare to, so really, you're just Callum. There's no real autism to me massively. Sometimes you get in a bit of a panic, and sometimes you're a bit nervous, but in reality there's very, very little that, at least at this stage of your life, shows that you have autism. Well, I got married and people at the wedding still don't know that you're autistic. So in reality, the having a brother with autism, especially the sort of autism, it's a very difficult word, is autism, because especially the autism you have, I don't know if that's the correct way of saying that, it's very difficult to put into words, because most people on a day-to-day basis, unless they're very close to you, know that you have autism. And as a brother, I have no other brothers to compare to, and when I look at you now, you're just Callum. You're not autism, Callum.
And not having that comparison, does that sort of, not to use the word normal, but not having that comparison of saying having another brother, has that helped you sort of get an understanding of the condition?
Yeah, I would say that I don't really have another brother to compare it against, so I guess there were other people, but when I grew up with other people, like I have friends and stuff growing up, they weren't too different from you. Like, we played, we were silly, we were brothers. Like, I didn't treat you any differently. I treated you like how I thought a brother should be treated. Or as how I thought my friends should be treated.
That's a really good attitude to have, is just sort of treating me the way that you would treat, your best mate, or, how you would want to be treated. And I think that is the right approach to it, is certainly from my perspective, growing up with you, the way that you dealt with it was fantastic, because you just treated it as any normal situation. And what I'm trying to get across is, and the questions that I'm asking you is, for you, it was just like any normal brother relationship.
Yeah, we'd jump from sofa to sofa, destroying sofas, pretending the floor was lava. Like, we'd laugh and we'd cry and like, at no point did I ever really feel that your autism got in the way of being a brother.
And for you, when was the moment that you figured out what autism was? Was it being with me, or when did it click?
I don't know what autism is. I would say that to know what autism is probably takes a lifetime of studying and meeting people with autism. I know what autism is like with you because I've grown up alongside you, but I couldn't say that I'd know what the whole of autism is. I know that your sort of autism is sometimes you worry and you're anxious and sometimes you struggle in social interactions, but granted, you don't struggle a lot in social interactions, just very precise ones. And that sometimes you like people, like you're too friendly towards people at times. I guess that was more growing up. I don't know that about that now.
I would say that I'm still very much like that. I will treat everybody with the same level of respect.
Well, that is needed. Is that level of respect? I think sometimes you're a little too trusting in humans, which might just come from a cynical, slightly older brother that has seen too much of the world.
You're listening to That Autism Thing, a candid conversation about autism. There's a lot of things that I've learnt from you in how to deal with the world. I would actually say, and probably this is a better comparison of it, is like the Cold War. So I know this is a really bizarre analogy, and
we're going far here.
Well, so like with the Cold War and the great space race between the USSR and the United States, I sort of always saw, not in a negative way, I always saw our relationship as I would see you do something and I would always go, oh, I really want to do that. If Declan can do that, I can do that. And it's something similar to that is I always used to watch you play FIFA. And I was fascinated by how you played FIFA and how you could play a video game. And that's how I got into video games, was because I always wanted to be similar to you. And that's very much the comparing how I see our relationship. I sort of saw it as that sort of that great space race where you do something great and I want to be able to do that with you. And that was very much the relationship.
I think that's all younger. Well, a large majority of, from what I've read, younger brothers and older brothers is. I had a couple of years in front of you of stuff done, and there's always a bit of catching up or wanting to do what the older brother did.
Yeah, but I always think there was something a bit special about that between us two. I always quite liked the fact that you were the.
I think the thing that was special was that it was never like no, Callum can't do this, or no, like I don't want him about, or like it was. I think the space race is a little special in the sense of that it ended in quite the collaboration where the ISS was built. I guess that's probably quite the nice analogy.
I can't remember either, to be fair. The reason I use that analogy is because of how it ended. And I think we're at that stage now where a lot of it is, we collaborate together.
Well, yeah, it's like this podcast. You said you wanted to do it, so I can definitely jump on and help you if you need help, or like sometimes you come down and stay at our house, and if I needed like you to help me in some way, I wouldn't hesitate in asking. But yeah, like I think that's a lot of brothers though, and maybe it's a little nicer because we were both brought up to be respectful and caring of one another.
Yeah, I definitely. I think that is, I think that's the type of relationship we have is one where it's now a collaborative one. We help each other, we help mum and dad, and I think that is probably one of the best. I think the best type of relationship for somebody with autism is that it's collaborative. It's not one-sided where, you've got to help me. It's very much we've got to help each other. And sometimes it might be the case that we do end up, one of us might take the lead, but it is that a very collaborative approach to, the future. Really, that's how I like to see it. Is that for both of us that's you help me if I struggle a little bit with a situation, that you might come in and lead it a little bit, but then overall it is that collaborative sort of engine, if you will, that helps. And that's the type. I think that we've made a really good point there about how a brother relationship like that works, and thank you for that. For the years of helping me understand the world. You're listening to That Autism Thing, a candid conversation from the eyes of people who care and support. Is there any one moment throughout us being brothers that you've sort of gone, okay, what does this mean? Or have you ever got stuck in a moment around autism, or has it always been, have you always sort of figured out a way of how to understand it?
I think the only moment where I was like, oh, you need a bit of help here, or like some guidance, I guess, would be we used to walk home from school, and there was like a different school that would pass by, and sometimes you just stare at them, and I think one time I had to finally say, like, the reason that they act up, or the reason that they're sometimes they acted up, sometimes they just stared back, it was because you're staring at them, and that it's like it's a bit intimidating from both sides, and that if you just ignore them, they just ignore you. And really, that was the only moment that I can ever think of where I was like, oh, like, maybe it's a bit of his autism, like, that hasn't made that clear, or he hasn't figured out that social construct. Sometimes when there's threatening people about not to stare at them, but yeah, other than that, like,
for you, there's been no real moment that sort of a light bulb moment is probably the better way to describe it.
Yeah,
no.
Good. No, there's no moment where I've ever felt like Callum is autistic, or because mum and dad wouldn't let you. You couldn't use it as an excuse. We would just make allowances at times for like certain behaviours of stress or worry. But like, oh, this is my autism. Like, we didn't really have any of that growing up. It was like, okay, well, this is the situation, and this is how things happen, and why they happen, and there was a lot of calm explanation, or if you were worried, we were very good at handling your worrying, explaining things.